Good afternoon, Mets fans. Happy Saturday, and welcome to a special weekend edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and as I promised earlier in the week, I'm going to start talking about what the roster looks like as the 2018 season approaches. Opening day is less than 2 weeks away, as we all know. And today I'm going to start with the outfield. That'll be the first area that we'll tackle. And we're going to talk about who I think will be on the opening day roster in less than 2 weeks. Before I start talking about the outfield alignment for opening day, I want to throw a quick story out there. My daughter is playing softball for, I think, the 4th year now. And she's been number 10 in the first 3 years that she's played. The first 2 years, it was just coincidence. They didn't let the girls pick their numbers or anything. But last year, they did allow the girls to choose their number, and my daughter selected number 10 because that was always her number. This year, the option remained again where she could pick her number. She wanted to be number 10, but her fallback number was number 34. And the reasoning behind that when we made the selection was, of course, that's Noah Syndergaard's number. So her numbers, the numbers for the team came out this week, and she didn't get number 10. She ended up with number 34. And so she sort of forgot why she chose 34 as her plan B. So when I told her she wasn't number 10, she was really sad. And she basically said, "But I'm Terry Collins." And I always thought that was hilarious. But she was really sad, like I said. And then I told her, "Well, that's Noah's number." And she smiled, big smile ear to ear. So in light of that, I'm wearing my Noah Syndergaard jersey right now. But that's neither here nor there, and of course that has nothing to do with the Mets starting outfield. So let's get into it. The outfield is one of the more defined areas of the team as opening day approaches. In left field and right field, both corners, we sort of have that pretty well locked down at this point, where we'll have, of course, Yoenis Cespedes starting in left field and Jay Bruce opposite him in right field. So the question mark as the season begins will be who's going to be manning center field. If Michael Conforto weren't injured, was not injured, I don't know. If Conforto were available, of course, he'd be the center fielder. There'd be no question, there'd be no debate. The only debate would be who are the bench guys. Well, Conforto's not going to start the season on opening day with the Mets. Scooter, as we love to call him, made his spring training debut yesterday in not a spring training but a minor league debut. Got on the field, got into a game, was 0 for 4, drew 2 walks. Said he feels good, said he feels healthy, said his timing is off, which is to be expected. But the bottom line is Conforto's not going to be in center to start the season, which means the Mets will have to choose between their Gold Glove contending perennial fantastic defender Juan Lagares and the first round pick Brandon Nimmo. And Brandon Nimmo is a Sandy Alderson guy in that he's an on-base guy. And defensively, I don't think there's a question that Lagares is the better choice between Nimmo and himself. But Nimmo has shown what Lagares hasn't all spring, and Nimmo has shown his ability to get on base and do so at a high clip. Lagares, as we all know, over the winter worked on his swing and made adjustments to his stance, worked with the same man who reinvented the swing of J.D. Martinez. And we sort of looked at Lagares with high hopes, like, hey, maybe this will be the thing that finally gets Lagares to click at the plate and turns him into a weapon on both sides of the ball. Thus far in the spring, we have not seen that. Lagares remains offensively challenged, and over the last week or so, there's been some rumors and some stories about potential trade interests from other teams in Juan Lagares. And this is really unfortunate because if Conforto were healthy, you could say, let's trade Lagares right now. I mean, not to say we don't need him. I mean, every team would love to have a guy who can play defense the way Lagares can. But Nimmo's no slouch. I mean, he's an adequate defender in the outfield. He's, of course, not as good as Lagares, but Nimmo's a fine outfielder and obviously a much better choice at the bat. But Lagares has drawn interest, and even still, the fact that there's sort of a vacancy or a vacuum out in the outfield, I would still pull the trigger and trade Lagares, mainly because it frees up some salary. Because I would love to see the Mets use the money that's guaranteed to Lagares for this year and go out and sign Greg Holland and bolster the bullpen, which is already going to be a strong piece. I'm not going to talk too much about what the bullpen will look like because I want to get to that in another video, but the point to this is that if the Mets do trade Lagares, they're really short in the outfield, to the point where in today's game, in about a half an hour, at least from right now, I'm not sure when I'll post this, but in today's game, Wilmer Flores is actually starting in the outfield. So they're trying to get Wilmer some reps in the outfield. It's a good thing to be versatile and to be able to play multiple positions. I don't know that any of us think that Wilmer Flores will be a successful defensive outfielder. He might be better than Duda out in the outfield. I certainly hope he's not worse. But, you know, Wilmer can't run very fast. He's not a speedster at all. It'll all be about getting reads and getting good jumps if Wilmer ever wants to be an outfielder at a major league level. But the point is without Lagares, they're really left without a fourth outfielder to start the season, to the point where you might see someone like Ty Kelly make the team on opening day just because he can play the outfield if needed. So the big question is, what happens with Lagares? Are they going to trade him? I suspect they're not, as much as I'd love to see it happen, just because there's such an empty spot. He leaves such a void if you trade him. If you keep Lagares on the roster, you can slot between him and Nimmo in center field. But on opening day, really long way to get to it, we're going to see Brandon Nimmo in center field. And I think Nimmo is going to be the starting center fielder. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. On his left, Jay Bruce. On his right, Yoenis Cespedes. It's a pretty good outfield. And I think we're going to see Nimmo play there more than Lagares. Lagares will be a late inning defensive replacement, maybe a pinch runner option. But it's going to be Nimmo getting the bulk of the playing time. Even though he's a lefty, I think he's going to get more at bats than Lagares. He deserves more at bats. He's shown that he's growing as a defender. As a player. And Juan Lagares, while I love what he brings to the team, he's shown that he's not much more than a one-dimensional defensive specialist. What do you guys think about Nimmo versus Lagares? Who's your choice to start in center field? Or would you go really outside the box and say that I'm wrong about Bruce starting in right because he's going to end up at first base? Let's talk about that in the comments below. Or if you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can do so at Mr_Met. I thank you for watching. Enjoy the game today. We are less than 2 weeks from opening day. That's a great thing. I will be back in a couple of days to go beyond the outfield. I'm going to start looking at the infield next as far as who's going to make the opening day roster. But until then, let's go Mets.